Folks, I'm not going to lie to you. I know everybody likes to play team sports with this Lil Durk case and say, you're on Team Durk, you're on Team the Feds. And I thought Durk was cooked for a long time, but I'm not going to lie to you. His aura overloaded legal team, Drew Findling, Brian Steele, I see him in the flesh, big aura. I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone's saying I'm team Feds, but realistically, when I went to the court date recently, I saw Durk pull a W out the bag in front of everybody. It was a shock. The Feds looked shocked. They looked shocked as hell. Now we're seeing new paperwork. The Feds have dropped a new superseding indictment, and then Durk's lawyers are now clapping back. I'm honestly, color me impressed. Color me impressed, because I feel like Durk's legal team is putting up an incredible fight, and unfortunately, it feels like the Feds are taking a case which really should have been a slam dunk because of all the self-snitching that went on, all of the evidence, and all of the just obvious, coincidences that pointed to Durk being involved in this situation. It seems like, no disrespect to the Feds, but it seems like a lot of little mistakes are now kind of building on top of each other. And the defense have got their I's dotted, their T's crossed, and it's kind of looking like Lil Durk's about to have the advantage in this situation. So look, I'm just going to keep it real with you. This ain't no team sport. I ain't Team Durk. I ain't Team Brian Steele. I ain't Team the Feds. I'm Team Truth. I'm Team Justice. And it's very, very interesting what's going on now. I'm going to break it all down to you in this video. But, some of you fools might be hitting me with the old, oh, stay on that side. But look. All right, look, it is looking bad. So the prosecutors filed a notice regarding a fourth superseding indictment, all right? So this went around just over a week ago, and this is kind of the beginning of a little bit of a series of mistakes. It says this is not a fourth indictment against Durk and others. The government filed a notice that basically there was an imminent fourth superseding indictment that they hadn't issued yet. They basically said that, it's coming. They said the grand jury has just returned a fourth superseding indictment. It contains one substantive charge from the third superseding indictment to address a potential duplicity issue in count 3. Because bear in mind, last time I went to the court date and we saw Durk and his legal team definitely run some rings around the prosecution, it was very, very interesting to kind of see and keep track of it that they severed the counts. They said this new vicar charge, the murder of Stefan Mack that they were now trying to put on Durk, they basically, the judge said, no, you're going to have to separate these. You can't throw a whole extra murder and a whole RICO on him weeks before the trial. It's really not fair. You're going to have to stick to the LA situation. So just to give you a little bit of understanding, okay, it kind of breaks it down in this bottom. It says this is a procedural filing. It's not a new allegation. It wasn't the actual superseding indictment. And they basically said that the legal department, well, they're all a bunch of legal department. The prosecutors basically found an issue with the fourth superseding indictment when they were drafting it. It basically says that the third superseding indictment had a count that alleged stalking of multiple victims. That would include, Stefan Mack, anyone to do with the GDs. Basically, it kind of, would intend to, put this stalking charge on Durk in various different ways, and it was a much wider RICO charge. So now they're kind of saying, look, charging multiple victims in one count could create a legal problem called duplicity. It had the stalking involving multiple victims. Instead, they're changing it to one stalking count covering multiple victims. Sorry, instead of one stalking count covering multiple victims, the government is now splitting it into 2 different counts. The stalking of Quando Rondo using a dangerous weapon, and the stalking of Savia Robinson resulting in death. Now, this is interesting because obviously, I don't think that they knew or cared about Lil Pab when they were stalking Quando Rondo. They were trying to kill Quando. They killed Pab by accident, all right? If you can't get the main N-word, then you better get his guys. That's what Durk be saying, all right? But this is the thing. I don't think it matters. I think the stalking took place even though maybe they didn't know that it was Lil Pab. Just because Lil Pab had a little beef on Clubhouse and had insulted Durk a little bit before this. It's it's interesting that they're still saying it's stalking of Savia Robinson resulting in death. And now I wonder, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know for sure, but it kind of makes you wonder, okay, so are they going to have to prove that they were stalking Lil Pab? And in which case, did they really even know Lil Pab? So the stalking resulting in death, is that going to stick? He definitely did die. They were stalking Quando. They shot up the car hoping to kill Quando, and they killed Savia Robinson, aka Lil Pab. it's very, very interesting. So now it's two different counts approaching two different victims. And again, I feel like the government are kind of getting backed into a corner here because they keep having to kind of change their story. And no doubt that Durk's legal team is then going to find another good reason to say, well, stalking of Survivor, we didn't even know who Survivor Robinson was. All right. So it says, I've been yelling this at people, but they'd rather turn it into something big and dramatic they can point to as evidence that the case is weak. In my opinion, this is still bad, no, because the first indictment would be one charge, meaning one sentence. Stalking involving multiple victims would say be 10 years. Now, with it being two separate charges, they would almost certainly get found guilty of both. If they stalked one, they had to have stalked the other. It would be stalking with a dangerous weapon for Quando, max 10 years, then resulting in death for Pab is anything up to life. So when it comes to appeals, they wouldn't just be fighting one stalking charge and beat both. They'd have to fight two separate charges. But that makes me think this charge is going to be easier to beat because they weren't necessarily stalking in Survivor Robinson. I would have thought it would be stalking of Quando Rondo resulting in death, but the death wasn't of Quando Rondo. So I wonder whether it's even a situation where the kind of laws that they've got to hit them, it might be really difficult because it's like, well, the guy you were stalking didn't die. He didn't get hurt. He didn't get hit. The guy you were stalking didn't get hit at all. And the guy that died, are they going to be able to prove that they were stalking Survivor Robinson? I don't know. So it says I have to go back and look at the third indictment. Apparently it was a mistake. It should have always been two. But this is the problem. And I want justice in this case. And I think Lil Pab and his mother deserve justice. But it's like a lot of small mistakes are now making the prosecutors look really bad. It's just a little mistake and another little mistake. And we use the wrong version of the song from YouTube. And, you know, we go, okay, we take the song out. All right, now we got a different. Now we brought up the wrong. You know, it's starting to look bad. It says I hope his defense team got something up their sleeve we don't know about. Drew and Brian seem very confident about this case, considering all the witnesses. Let's be real, the feds don't really get a lot of pointing at Durk that he called the shots and did everything, but it's a conspiracy and a new charge stalking. Quando using a dangerous weapon, that could be the one that cooks Durk. Honestly, because as a Durk fan, it looks like the worst charge of all because Durk did too much talking in his music. He has the Redman unreleased music video where he's literally killing a Quando lookalike. That's not going to be great. All right. And the witness who's literally taking the stand in the attempt where Durk and them shot at Quando in 2021 in Georgia, could they find him guilty on that charge alone? Because I think he has a good chance on the Cali murder and the stalking of Survivor Robinson. But the Quando charge kind of worries me a bit. I can't lie. All right, so news dropped. That was the little teaser, and then the official full superseding indictment did actually end up dropping. And this was very big. It had a few new nicknames for Durk. Durk, a.k.a. Lil Durk, a.k.a. Durk Banks, a.k.a. Lil Durk, a.k.a. Blood, a.k.a. Smirk, a.k.a. Lil Dude. I'm surprised I didn't put a.k.a. Smirkio, a.k.a. The Voice, okay? Dontrell Wilson, a.k.a. OTF Didi, a.k.a. Threat, a.k.a. Big Threat, a.k.a. D-Ski, and David Brian Lindsay, a.k.a. Brown Eyes. And Asa Houston, a.k.a. OTF Boogie, all right? So the superseding indictment will drop. It does mostly keep the same charges. It separates those stalking counts into individual charges involving Quando and Lil Pab. But basically, ahead of next week's hearing, all right, there's going to be a hearing very soon before there's going to be a pre-trial hearing. And it makes me wonder what is going to go down because there's basically been a bunch of new filings, which I thought would have been here, but they're not. But I'll pull them up in a minute. But basically, this is the new superseding indictment. This is what's going on, okay? And basically, it says, at times relevant to this full superseding indictment, all right? They're basically saying all these guys were involved in a criminal organization, involved in many things, including murder, attempted murder, robbery, trafficking, controlled substance. So they're still posing this as a racketeering enterprise. So this armed robbery that King Von, Lil Durk, AAB Hellabans and Bezu did back in 2019. That's all going to be part. They're all going to say there was attempted murder. So this is the thing. It's a problem. All right. It's still a racketeering enterprise. And I'm tired. I need some coffee. It's basically still a racketeering enterprise, and it's still intended that they are going to prove this racketeering, and there's going to be other incidences that are involved. Okay. The attempted murder. It's all going to be bad character. Now, what's interesting is they're still calling it the Banks Gang Enterprise, but they're mentioning OTF. Now, OTF had kind of been pushed to the back in the previous indictments. It had sort of been downplayed a little bit. Oh, it's the Banks Gang. Don't worry about OTF. Now they're talking about OTF again. It's in or around 2010, Durk formed OTF, Only the Family, which sold hip-hop music of artists primarily from Chicago. After the formation of OTF, a subset of OTF members, hereinafter the Banks Gang Enterprise, engaged in acts and threats of violence at the direction of Durk, including murder, attempted murder, to maintain their status in the Banks gang enterprise and to be awarded by Durk through economic benefits, including money, lucrative music opportunities, and jewelry. Here is the thing. Do you remember when King Von gave everybody O blockchains? And a lot of those people just so happened to be people that participated in the murder of FBG Duck. That was a sign of gang membership. Now, I sure hope the OTF chains weren't given to people that participated in this murder afterwards. Because a lot of people are saying, well, there's no proof. Here's a big mistake that the feds made that's very unfortunate. There was originally basically this claim that, what was it? The people had stuck around after the murder to be paid. They'd gone to In-N-Out and they discussed the payment and money had been handed over for the people that got this hit done. Well, they removed that in one of the later indictments, and then they started to more infer that, oh no, actually, the hitters were paid really through like lucrative music opportunities. Now, I do agree with that, to be honest with you. This Loyal Bros album that was put out, this OTF group album that just so happened to come out like 4 months after the murder, and a bunch of people that were involved in these hits was on the album or getting shout outs on the album. That might constitute enough, all right? Putting everybody on the OTF group album after you pulled off a successful hit really isn't a good look. But it doesn't help that the feds are saying that you paid everyone at In-N-Out, and then they're kind of changing their story a little bit on that one. So it is going to be tough. I mean, the feds have kind of scored a few own goals, but Durk's legal team, they haven't necessarily got everything all sewn up yet. So it basically says, it's a gang, it's involved in illegal activities, interstate and foreign commerce have been affected by these. It's an ongoing organization, it's giving backstory of the gang, and we kind of know a lot of this already, right? But basically, Durk was the leader of the Banks gang enterprise. And again, the way that they're reframing everything in this indictment, they're kind of bringing everything together in a way that is actually bad for Durk. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, the way that everything's kind of being brought together in this superseding indictment, this is the opportunity of the feds to get their story straight. Even though they're not happy that they couldn't throw all the murders at him at once, the feds now have an opportunity to get their story straight and hopefully minimize the misinformation that was accidentally included in previous indictments. So it explains all of the OTF members and obviously co-conspirators that are going to unfortunately be snitching on Durk, or fortunately if you're on the Fed side, people want to take sides. It says the co-defendants Wilson, Houston, and Grant, as well as co-conspirators 2 through 6. So that would suggest to me is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 snitches, potential snitches, or at least people that aren't accounted for in this. Because it does seem like, there was a co-conspirator that had given the location for Quando to get shot at. I think THF Bezu was one of these co-conspirators. He's not alive anymore. So we don't know if everybody in this is cooperating, but what we do know is it sounds like there are at least a couple cooperators in that batch. And they're basically explaining that this is the Banks gang enterprise. This is the gang that exists within OTF. So David Bryan Lindsay, aka Brown Eyes, Keith Jones, aka Flacker, and co-conspirators 7 and 8, which I believe were was it Mike City, AJ, and Marley, the guys that were on the Stefan Mack murder. I believe they're included in the Banks gang enterprise. And obviously the rumor is that they're cooperating. But anyway, the latter. Defendant Banks formed the Banks gang enterprise, recruiting others, violent members of the Black Disciples gang, including defendant Wilsey from different neighborhood blocks in and around the Chicago area. See, this is the thing. It's all well and good saying Durk's good, he's free, he's gonna kill it, his lawyers are great, but then it's like, then you start getting into this and you're like, okay, now they're painting a pretty damning picture. So it says, defendant Banks and Wilson, co-conspirators 2 through 6 were all members, associates or affiliates of Black Disciples. Members and associates of the Banks gang enterprise would use violence to preserve and promote Durk's enterprise power and influence, including power or control of the Black Disciple-controlled neighborhoods in Chicago, and to provide security and protection for defendant Banks, including protection from rivals of defendant Banks. What this is telling me is that even though they have severed the 2 different murder counts, they're still using a lot of the information and the backstory of the structure of the gang and looking at it from a RICO standpoint to explain Durk as the leader of the organization. And they'll probably use the exact same line of reasoning when it comes to the Stefan Mack murder that he's still going to have to face eventually. Because it says, the organization committed violence, including murder and attempted murder and threats to commit murder, promoting the enterprise to seek revenge against its rivals, including members of the Gangster Disciples gang, who harmed or attempted to harm or disrespected members or associates of the Banks gang. Okay, the killing of Davon Bennett, King Von, who's a member of the Banks gang enterprise and the Black Disciple gang, and a close friend and associate of Durk, Durk and other Enterprise members conspired to murder those whom they considered responsible for the death, including Taekwon Bowman. Now, this is a problem. This is a problem. Because I think that although it is factual that they're saying that they were seeking revenge against rivals, including members of the Gangster Disciple gangs, and individuals who harmed or disrespected members of the associates of the Banks Gang Enterprise. Now, Kwon Do wasn't no Gangster Disciple. It might not be worth mentioning Gangster Disciples here, because really that's a Stefan Mack kind of charge. But they've included that regardless. And I think this is the sort of thing that Durk's lawyers are going to be able to attack. And it's all well and good when you've got a prosecutor or a nerd like me that knows everything about this situation and the backstory. But when you're dealing with a member of a jury who hasn't got a fucking clue about anything, if Brian Steele can hop up there and say, well, Kwon Do's not a member of the Gangster Disciples, a member of a jury might be confused by that and say, well, yeah, no, Kwon Do's not a gangster. It don't really make sense. It can't be Black Disciples versus gangster. He wasn't a member of the Black Disciples. Doesn't disprove the murder happened. But again, it's creating that reasonable doubt, and I think that's going to play into Durk's favor, to be completely honest. Because saying the killing of King Von, who was a member of the Banks Gang Enterprise and a Black Disciples gang, and a close friend of Durk, well, he wasn't killed by Gangster Disciples. So, yes, they conspired to murder the person they perceived as responsible for the death, including Taekwon Bowman, Kwon Do Rondo. Here's the problem. And this is exactly what Durk's team is going to bring up. I guarantee you, Durk's team is going to get up and say, Lil Tim killed King Von. Ain't no Lil Tim no attempts on Lil Tim. Tim's still alive. And the stalking, they might even get up and say, well, they might have stalking Lil Tim. And Lil Tim ain't included in this. Lil Tim never got touched in this. Unless it turns out that Lil Tim actually did get hurt in that incident where they shot up the gas station, but that was never confirmed. Anyway, it went on to say, Durk and the leadership of the gang, they conspired to commit violence with members of the gang. Durk funded the criminality, facilitated the stolen cars to commit violent acts. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't want to get busy, put up money for a hot car, put up money for a bond. He said it all in his songs. To avoid law enforcement detection, the gang would use sliders, fake license plates to commit acts of violence against people they refer to ops. All right, ops. I'm pretty sure ops is spelled with OPPS. Again, little things like that. It's like, come on, man. Let's spell ops right at least. The amount of time I've had people working for me doing subtitles for videos on documentaries, and they spell ops like this pisses me off. Honestly, it pisses me off. The prosecutors should be spelling ops right, for the love of God. It actually gets me angry. What do you mean ops? Oops. We're going to slide on the oops. Anyway, they're saying Durk funded the criminality and violence, facilitated the purchase of the firearms, the flights. And I think the flights is one of the most damning things in this. And it's going to be really bad. Saying that they facilitated the purchase of quantities of illegal drugs. So he was fronting the money for the gang to get drugs and people to make money and all that kind of thing. I wonder if all of the Atlanta sort of back and forth that were going on will get brought into this too. I wonder. So he expected loyalty, all of this kind of stuff. So a lot of this is stuff we've seen before, so I don't want to go over this in great detail. Obviously, what's interesting is they talk about this Atlanta shooting where King Von and Bezu and them shot somebody in the leg. It was all about apparently the purchase of a stolen car. And then you kind of getting to the murder of victim 2, a rival gang member in Chicago. So here's the thing. They're still mentioning Stefan Mack in there as part of the conspiracy, but they're not charging him with the murder in this case. Right? So they're still using the Stefan Mack murder as proof of the gang enterprise. And this was included previously, let's be real. Before he was officially charged with it, this was brought up in his bail hearing. So they had always intended to do something with this. And then basically, they've got the messages of people saying, well, what's up with OTF? AJ and Marley going back and forth saying Durk's going to come here. He's going to bring $1 million cash. So this is all going to be presented, but he's not being charged with it. And I wonder how the judge is going to feel about this being included. If the judge is going to say, I told you not to include this other murder. They're not charging with it, but they're using it as proof of Durk leading this enterprise that could kill people. You see, you got the Mike City AJ flexing the money there. All right. This has been posted on Reddit a zillion times. All right. So again, he posted it with Lil Durk's song immediately after. This was very stupid thing to do. So it says that they tried to kill Kwon Do Rondo in Blackshear, Georgia on May the 2nd. And basically as revenge for the killing of Kwon Do, they had a conspiracy to kill Kwon Do Rondo. It ended up in the murder of Savia Robinson, aka Lil Pab. And basically it was committed by Durk, Wilson, Houston, Lindsay, Grant, Jones, and co-conspirators 2 through 6. They organized it and, went back and forth about it, bragged about it in phone calls, text communication, social media posts, musical lyrics. This is the thing. I think the feds have absolutely screwed themselves by going after this wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy song where, let's be real, Durk admitted to the murder on that song. And it came out after the murder. Now, Durk's team has said, no, look, we got some old files that suggest that the song was created before the murder took place. Now, you could easily go and punch in a few lyrics at the end and add some context about the murder. I personally don't believe that. But this is the thing. I think even the feds are kind of like, they don't even understand how this stuff works. And they've removed that lyric. But all they need to do, if they were really smart, is grab the song War About It, which came out, the year after the murder, where Durk and 21 Savage are saying, no, mocking Quando Rondo on the news, screaming no. But again, it's kind of like the feds are just making a lot of missteps in this. And there's evidence that really should have been brought up that wasn't brought up, and there's evidence that shouldn't have been brought up that was brought up, and then they've now backtracked. So it's not really a great situation to be in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Durk's going to completely beat this. So it's talking about how they brag about everything in the songs, and I think there will be a lot of songs that will be brought up. So they commit these violent and boastful acts for the purpose of preserving and promoting their enterprise, enhancing the reputation of its members, commercializing the enterprise's violence in public social media. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually hear, just like in the David trial, we might have some financial people coming forward and saying, how much did Durk make off the back of shouting out these murders? How much money did Durk make when, he basically had all the clout and everyone was loving him as the biggest murderer and the biggest shot caller in Chicago? Basically saying that they actually use the songs to recruit other people to join the enterprise. They use the songs and all the social media to intimidate and retaliate against basically anybody's rivals, and they preserve the power and influence of the enterprise in Chicago and Atlanta, which I think will lead to some of these interesting things being brought up. This Atlanta gang war, maybe King Von's sister's chain getting took, and that leading to a big shootout in the mall. Go and watch all the old videos I've done on that if you want some of that info. So it's got means and methods of the enterprise, basically saying that Durk was putting bounties on people's heads. It's the same stuff that we already know, right? But they're saying he's putting bounties on his head, offering people opportunities to be in music videos, music opportunities, jewelry. It does say with money too. So I think it's possible that money was changing hands, but I think more specifically, we're going to be hearing about people being put on songs and on albums and on OTF group albums, things like that, as a benefit and as a reward for participating. And they've got them talking down on snitches and rats and saying that they were trying to influence and stop anybody ratting, and they were in the group chats talking about, we got rats, we need to keep our story straight and all that kind of thing. So this breaks down the actual murder of Lil Pab, and it does say it was a racketeering activity and there was consideration for an agreement to pay anything of pecuniary value. It could have been that you all get onto the OTF album, or it could have been some cash money, or it could have been a mixture of both. So this is going to kind of break down the whole conspiracy. It's got King Von's death from November 6th, 2020, all the way up to August of 2023. Now, I think August of 2023 is a very interesting time, okay? August of 2023 is an interesting time. Like, I do think that, they're going to be able to include this Almost Healed album, which did have some pretty brash statements on it. This came out in sort of like just before the summer of 2023. I think this is going to end up being used in some of these lyrics. And I think what is going to happen is I think Brian Steele pulled a genius move in the Young Thug trial when they kept saying, we want to use all these lyrics of him talking about having people shot, I shot at his mum and now he no longer mentioned me, little Woody pull up and pop at his noggin. Brian Steele was a fucking genius when he said, okay, well, we want to play Lifestyle. And they're like, why do you want to play Lifestyle? He said, you playing songs? We want to play songs. And they had him playing, did a lot of shit just to live this here lifestyle. And we saw those viral moments of people bopping their head, right? And in that song, he's talking about Rich Gang, all right? He was genius for playing that. One, it was a viral moment. And two, he basically had the court bopping along to all of those songs. The jury's thinking, well, what's this got to do with anything? What's the other songs got to do with anything? What's Rich Gang? What's YSL? He talking about Rich Gang on this song. It don't make sense. And it muddied the waters and it created a reasonable doubt that, like, you might as well play the whole catalog. And I guarantee you, if the feds play War About It, all right? If the feds play He said, no, I'm thinking he let a hoe got him. He said, no, I said, let's go to war about it. Where'd he go? You better know the more got him. I bet you if the feds play that, I guarantee you Brian Steele's going to say, give me the orcs. I want to play a song. You know what he's going to play? All my life, they've been trying to keep me down. They couldn't make it. I couldn't make me. I guarantee you this is going to be Brian Steele's move. And if he does this, I'm going to be bopping because it's one of my favorite songs. It's a banger. All right, this is a banger. This is the song this song might save Durk's life, because if they get to play all of the murder songs and they're going to use that as bad character, Durk's got this in the chamber and he can play this as an example of good character. And I think Brian Steele might pull that move. Okay, so anyway, back to this. I'm getting a little bit bored going over this because it's all the same stuff that we've already heard before. But essentially, it's making it clear that everybody conspired to get back for King Von, and the attempted murder on Quando Rondo was basically the plan. All right, so that was the plan. They're saying Durk put bounties on a bunch of different people. Anybody that wanted to take part in killing Quando Rondo would be paid or compensated or rewarded in some such way. So that is kind of what was going down. All right. And they eventually did plan this travel from Chicago. And again, a lot of people saying, oh, it don't prove nothing. But Lil Durk's credit card being used, the OTF credit card being used, that's his enterprise, all right? And him saying, don't use no cards associated with me, that is extremely bad, okay? Using the fake car, the fake license plate, Durk being there when they shot a guy in the leg about a stolen car in 2020 with King Von. And then all these guys are using these sliders, and Durk's got lyrics talking about put up money for a hot car, put up money for a bond. It's like, bro, you was already putting up money for the hot cars since 2020, so that's really bad. That is bad. All right, that is bad. The prosecutors made some mistakes, but you made some mistakes too. That's really bad. So they're all communicating through cell phones and encrypted calls to coordinate logistics to find, track, and kill Quando. Now, this is going to be damning. When they actually have I bet you there's an OTF group chat talking about, oh, he's at this hotel. Oh, okay, we pulling up now. Oh, okay, we here now. We pulling up. We going to go, yeah, okay, we following, yeah. I guarantee you, okay? And then basically, this is how it all goes down. It says that they would boast and celebrate the violence in a group chat, including Durk telling Wilson, dudes don't slide or hurt an MFer, leaving it all up to us. All right? Us. These two letters are a big problem for Durk. Us, we, I, us. Remember when Von off 1700 said that? What do you mean us? What do you mean us? That's bad. That's bad. Leaving it up to us. What? Us. Our criminal enterprise I'm in control of. Very, very bad. Okay, and then there's all these other overt acts. There's going to be a bunch of these, okay? Basically, Durk saying, I can't let this slide. I ain't letting shit slide. King Von died, turned me into a different animal. That's extremely bad. Just a day after, saying he cannot let this slide. He should have let it slide. The Red Man music video where he basically did a depiction of Quando Rondo getting killed by Durk himself personally. This is extremely bad, all right? And then you've got all these little... This is the motive. You've got in the video him looking at his phone of all these people saying slide for Von, and then him creating a scenario where he kills Quando. Brother, why did you do that? Why did you do that? What? Why? So, and then it says the attempt to kill Quando Rondo after the concert in Blackshear, Georgia. Again, they're keeping all their cards close to their chest. I want to know, I want to see the text messages where it was made clear that this is what was going down. They might have more, just like the David case. They might have a whole lot more cards close to their chest. When they actually pull out all the group chats, it's going to be over with. We don't know. So obviously, Durk and co-conspirator 4 learned Quando was in California staying at a hotel. So they all flew to Los Angeles. This is one of the dumbest things that Durk's done. Flying, he should have just stayed in Miami and let them go do the hit on their own. He might have gotten away with it. He went to Los Angeles on a private jet so they could help coordinate. That was insane. That's, to me, this is the most damning smoking gun of them all, if I'm honest with you. So basically, Durk asked other people to travel to Southern California for the purpose of murdering TB. And again, this doesn't say, it says defendant Banks and co-conspirator 5 asked co-conspirator 2 to travel to California later that day for the purpose of murdering Isn't Coco 2 Bezu? My bad. Co-conspirator 6 was Bezu. So I don't actually know who was, I don't think we worked that out yet. Co-conspirator 2, do we know who that is? Still unknown. An unnamed, unindicted individual. So I wonder who that is. That's going to be somebody that's going to have a lot to say. And this is the thing. They were asked to travel to California to participate in the murder. It could be a big name. We don't know. But saying Durk and Coco number 5 asked number 2 specifically, yo, can you come and get involved in this hit? Extremely, extremely sketchy. Okay. So it's a little bit concerning. So from there, they basically all got involved. They recruited people. And again, people saying that Wilson did this on behalf of Durk in overt act number 8, but in overt act number 7, it's saying Durk personally asked somebody to travel to California that day for the purpose of killing Quando Rondo. Extremely bad. It's saying a cellular phone, Durk texted co-conspirator number 3, don't book no flights under names involved with me. All of this is really bad, to be honest. Now we're getting back to Durk might be cooked the timing. I'll take my vitamins. So from here, right, basically all of this happened. It got booked in a credit card name under OTF, all of this kind of stuff. So we're just going over the stuff we already know, right? They flew from Chicago to San Diego via the airplane tickets. I don't know whether they thought if we fly into San Diego, they won't know that that's what we was doing. Like, you guys didn't have no business being in California. You didn't have no business being in California. They went and bought ski masks from a sporting store in Los Angeles County using cash. You and Los Angeles are one of the most surveilled and populated cities in America, right? Used the OTF credit card to rent hotels for the co-conspirators in the Universal City Hotel. They went and got a switch. They got a firearm with a switch. They got guns. They met up, provided them with guns. Just insane. Okay, so anyway, they got a BMW, white BMW from a rental company, white Infiniti sedan. They put on fake license plates. They went to a downtown LA hotel. They've not named the hotel. I'm very curious to know what hotel that was. They went to the hotel to kill them. Grant met in person with Durk to give him an update about their efforts to track and kill him. So after they'd already gone to Quando's hotel, this is very, very bad, right? They heard Quando was staying at the hotel, and after they'd gone to the hotel to attempt to kill him, obviously it didn't work out. It sounds like they made an attempt to kill him at his hotel. It didn't work out. And then it basically says that they met with Durk. Grant went and met with Durk to give him an update on this ongoing attempt to murder. That's the day before. So it sounds like the day before they tried to kill him and it didn't go well. And then the next day they went back to his hotel to find him and track him and kill him. They then followed him to a dispensary on Flower Street in Los Angeles. And all of this is on camera. Got all of this just merched on camera. And we're going to see a lot more of this. And what's crazy is that's Quando's car. They're right next to him. The Infiniti's way back there. Is that their cars back there? Is it just so happens? Oh, no. Okay, the way that they've put this here, it makes it look like the car's right next to him, but it's actually not there. They're actually way behind him in traffic over there. But, they tracked him down. They ended up finding him at that gas station in Beverly Hills, at the Beverly Center. There were stupid places you could murder somebody, and then took him out. So, yeah, it's the stuff we already know. These are the moments where they all came up shooting. We're probably going to see that footage in the trial. And then they flew back using the OTF credit card. They bought airline tickets. They flew back to Chicago from San Diego. They basically sent a message. Co-conspirator 3 sent Durk a message with the individuals mocking Quando's reaction. This is him screaming no, the viral news coverage. And then they basically went back and forth about it. And then Grant went to a Verizon store in Woodland Hills, California to buy new burner phones, right? And then it's like, we got you on the burner phones. We got the new numbers. It's easy. Cool. Got you. All right. They were communicating about their attempts to murder Quando using those numbers. And then it's like, this is interesting. This is interesting. We haven't actually seen this before, so this is new info. On July the 6th, 2023, Durk sent a group text message to the co-conspirators, including defendant Wilson, all right, DeAndre Didi, and base Durk said, and this is a lyric, all right, it said, Deesky beat his murder, he gonna be more dangerous. So these are famous lyrics. So he's shouting out these lyrics, right? And what's really interesting, it says on July 6th, he messaged those lyrics, all right? July 6th, 2023. Now, this is something that Durk's lawyers are probably going to use as a defense and say, oh, he's messaging lyrics from a song that was already out. The song was already out on May 26, 2023. This is the song. But again, it's a song where they're basically saying, we pop all these people. So here's the line, whatever Deesky beat his murder, he gonna be more dangerous. All right. So this isn't proof of anything. But again, it's like, if there's going to be an argument that he allowed people to have shout outs and hop on songs as a reward for being in the murder, it's like, it's like, this isn't proof of anything, okay? But then it's like the next few things are definitely very incriminating. Whenever Deesky beat his murder, he's going to be more and more dangerous. How these killers get on the net, you'd think there's no more gangsters. Okay, cool. But then what about this one? Said he'd still be dead right now, but we ain't get him. He'd still be alive right now, but he ain't get it. That one is a little bit, people saying it's FBG Wooski shooting. He'd still be dead right now, but we ain't get him. He'd still be alive right now, but he ain't get it. I think personally that second line is talking about Quando, basically saying Pab would be alive right now, but you ain't get it. You ain't get the message. You ain't get that we was after you. Anyway, right, this is one of those things that could go both ways. I think Durk's lawyers are gonna have a great time trying to say this has got nothing to do with nothing. This was already in a song. And again, the context of this is hard to communicate. But anyway, there's more messages. They're talking about co-conspirators. They're saying someone's just ready to snitch blood, clear as day. He gonna tell soon. That's in August 2023. So he's put all of these things on songs, and that's why the August 2023 section is very important, because you've got all of this, you know, alleged back and forth worrying about snitches, saying he think he can break us down, right? This is a problem, right? He ready to snitch. Snitch on what? What? The crimes, the criminal conspiracy you guys are all involved in together. That's very, very interesting. So one of the co-conspirators, but we don't know who, they're saying he ready to snitch soon. Clear as day. Okay, beware of everybody, not just the suspected government informant. Saying as long as we don't break, they can tell them whatever they want. Saying dudes out here already playing with folks' name. Crazy blood. Dudes don't slide or hurt MFers, leaving it all up to us. It's bad. Okay, it's bad. So look, that's basically the gist, all right? I'm not. This is all just kind of more legalese at the end, and explaining kind of some of the details about the benefits that they were getting out of being involved in the gang and all this kind of thing. It really is a very, very bad look. Now, shout out to Durk all day on X. Okay, he's been doing a great job reporting on this. Shout out to him. All right, had a little back and forth with him the other day where I made a very stupid mistake. In the previous video about Durk, I made it very clear, right? Von's got a daughter called True and a son that's basically like Dave Von Jr. Son. King Von's calls himself grandson. It's son is King Von is grandson son. Right now, I said in the video that that's his daughter. Now, I made a mistake when I made a tweet. I said, "Oh, True is King Von's son." I meant to say daughter, just like the feds probably meant to say daughter too. It's a very easy mistake to make. I got it right in the video, but I got it wrong in the tweet. Right. So again, I feel like it's interesting. It's like you make a little typo, and everyone's kind of like, "Yeah, you wrong." Like, and it's kind of like you can make a typo, but the underlying truth of the matter can still be there. Like the fact is that Durk's on a song talking about why are you posting son, why are you posting True, right? If you erroneously refer to Von's child as a son rather than a daughter in a typo, does that necessarily mean that the sentiment of that lyric doesn't stand? Anyway, shout out to Durk's imaginary manager. He's doing his thing. I really appreciate all of the posts that he's been doing. And he's kind of covering quite a few of Durk's responses to this new document, which is really interesting. So I'm going to run through it. I don't think I'm going to read you all of the paperwork because it's just a little bit trying to go through everything. And I don't think we're that interested at this point. But basically, he kind of breaks down all of the new updates and what Brian Steele is clapping back with, and it's quite interesting. So he said, Brian Steele, Durk's basically made a bunch of responses, and this says, Brian responds to the government. What the government wants is before each trial day, defense should show any of their own statements that they might use under Rule 106. It's super dark in here. I forgot to turn my light on. Under Rule 106, notice of any statements they plan to use their case in chief 1 week before trial. It says Brian Steele is arguing that they can't know in advance what a witness will say or how the government will use evidence, so a set preview schedule isn't practical. He proposes disclosing Rule 106 material at or before they begin cross-examining a given witness, not a full day ahead. They also point out that they anticipate introducing all relevant information on cross-examination of witnesses during the government's case in chief. If that changes, they will alert the Gov which specific statements will be used as soon as they are identified. So yeah, basically saying the defense should show any of their own statements they might be using. They want notice of any statements. Just they want to know what's going on, basically, with this thing, right? So it says Durk's lawyers are opposing the government's motion for a gag order. This was the motion where they said that they didn't want Durk's lawyers jumping on the media and muddying the waters or using all of the Free Durk campaign to basically try and influence the jury. Obviously, they're going to argue against this. They're saying no gag order is necessary, and if one is ever imposed, it should be narrowed to just the character or reputation of the parties, the expected testimony of a party or witness, and evidence that's been ruled inadmissible. So, you know, there's kind of some interesting stuff on here. You know, it basically says the Justice Department's built a case through Durk's guilt through multiple press releases that reiterate the evidentiary narrative. They're basically saying, you know, you guys are putting stuff out here saying Chicago rapper Lil Durk arrested on complaint alleging your ordered murder or attempt that resulted in fatal shooting. Basically saying the press releases contain unnecessary and prejudicial editorializing that reemphasize facts in the indictment and mention additional facts, calling the crime a cold-blooded murder. Now, this is a problem because when I was in court, the judge himself was describing it as a despicable murder. So it's all well and good calling out the prosecutors for press releases that, you know, say that it was a cold-blooded murder, but the judge thinks the murder's despicable, and he's not going to be feeling it if you try and push back. I would, honestly, I know Brian Steele gets fiery in the courtroom, and I know that judge is very fiery. I would like to see Brian Steele and that judge go head-to-head for a little bit of a bitter exchange, because they both seem like very hard-headed people at the top of their game. So I ain't going to lie. If Brian Steele and that judge, I feel like this judge definitely is a bit more hot on his feet and plugged in to what's going on than the judge in that YSL case that tried to put Brian Steele in jail. So I think it's going to be two titans going against each other in this instance, to be honest with you. It says they argue that counsel on both sides are are professional and ethical, so a preemptive order is unnecessary. If a real problem arises, the court can address it then. The defense argues the prosecution's own indictments and press releases have already shaped public opinion about Durk. Inclusion of prejudicial material like the mention of a co-defendant's prior murder acquittal, photos of masked gunmen, car chases, and music videos. Saying the government should not be permitted to throw rocks and hide its hand. Throughout the case, the government has conducted itself with an eye towards the press, and Durk has responded on occasion in an attempt to balance the public perception. That's honestly a good response. As mentioned, they argue no court order is necessary, and in the unlikely event it becomes necessary in future, it should be narrowly tailored and not prohibit the defense from opining on Durk's innocence and the strength of either party's case. So that's a really interesting point. So this is very interesting. It says the government wants the court to prevent Durk from referring to the first indictment. The defense argues the government's confusing art with confession is fair game because it goes to the credibility of the investigation itself. We're going to go back to this fucking song, this bullshit, all right? The government originally treated Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy as a confession, even though the song was recorded before the August 2022 murder. Cap! It's cap! It's bullshit. Honestly, this is just my opinion, but it's cap. The song was recorded in January 2022. Give us real proof. No one's given us real proof. I tell you what, bro, I could show you a Google Doc that was created before something that happens in one of my documentaries. I could create the Google Doc years ago. I could fire up a Google Doc that I created 5 years ago, put Durk is a murderer in it now, and I could say, well, that was created before he'd even done the murder. It doesn't, bro. This is my opinion, but this one is a scam. Okay, the song was recorded. All right. The song was released after the murder, and he referenced things that you would only have known had the murder happened afterwards. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. And the government completely shot themselves in the foot. Shame on them for using a fan-made YouTube version that had the news audio in it rather than the official song, because that completely screwed them. That basically made their evidence that they had that was actually quite powerful completely inadmissible. And that was a massive mistake and a huge flop by the government. They really should be licking their wounds over that one. It says they claim the false theories are based on lies from PW1 and the government failed to scrutinize him, leading to false evidence. This is the thing. You guys screwed up so bad you used the wrong version of the song. Now they're talking about false evidence in front of the grand jury. You guys look so bad. You guys look so bad when all you had to do was use the real version of the song and just say, bro, you haven't provided proof. You have not provided proof, sir. Now they can't use this, and they ain't pulled war about it yet. Anyway, First indictment claimed Dee Dee stayed in LA to pay out the bounty, but the allegation was dropped from the second superseding indictment after flight records showed it was false. The defense argued another example of the government relying on unreliable witnesses. They argue they have the right to attack the quality of the investigation. The jury is entitled to weigh how the government's investigative work was, since that affects how much weight the evidence deserves. All right, this is so bad for the government. It says basically they're not seeking to introduce irrelevant material. They want to expose the government's own investigation was built on witness lies that already led to false statements to a grand jury, a core challenging to the reliability of the case. This one pisses me off because I'm sorry, but it was a mistake. They pulled the wrong link, and then you guys, in my opinion, made up a story to say that the song was recorded before the murder. I'm sorry, but that's just, the song references the murder directly. The song references the murder directly. Anyway, that's just my opinion though. So it says Durk responds to the government motion in the means seeking to exclude irrelevant evidence. They agree with the government jury nullification is off limits, but they argue the government mischaracterizes what evidence is actually relevant. The defense says they won't introduce irrelevant personal factor evidence like endorsements, fan support, charitable work, potential punishment, family, etc., unless it bears on a factor issue, and if it does become relevant, the government can object to trial like normal. The government wants the court to prevent Durk from referring to the first indictment. The defense argues the government's confusing art with confession is fair game because it goes to the credibility. Oh, we already saw this. All right, I think we've seen everything now. The purposeful omissions are deeply concerning. As I pointed out when the government filed their motion, they focused on anything Von related while omitting that D-Thang is mentioned in the song seen on the t-shirt and also referenced. Big red flag in my opinion. So Durk is opposing the government pissed me off. This is so ridiculous. It's like, no, you don't use piss me off. He's talking about a different murder that he did. He's talking about a different murder for hire. Don't confuse the murder for hires. Don't mix them up. This is him talking about getting back for D-Thang, not Von. Oopsie. Oh, whoops, we admitted we do murder for hires. They point out the government misrepresents the lyrics' meaning. They cherry-pick and mischaracterize lyrics to make them look like a threat of revenge tied to Von. Admitting the song opens with Long Live D-Thang, a tribute to Durk's brother, you know, who we got back for in the other murder that he's facing, that you got severed. You know, the other murder for hire that he did. I mean, whoopsie. That one's crazy, all right? The mention of Long Live Von t-shirt admitting it also says Long Live D-Thang. You trying to make it all about Von, but it's another murder. It's a different murder he did. It's a different murder. It's a different get back for a different guy that he did in a different city, right? He's doing murders in multiple cities. Get it right. That's not actually helpful, right? The fact that they've got them severed, they're saying the government mentions a Von lookalike, which is factually correct. The producer-director took artistic liberties and put old footage of Von into the video, not a lookalike. An inaccuracy like this shows the government fails to look past the service. I'm not going to lie, I agree. If you guys are confusing Von lookalike with the old footage of Von, you guys are really cooking yourselves here. So I think that the government making these sorts of mistakes are creating a big problem. Okay, so that's all the info, right? I'll leave it there. I'll keep you guys posted once I have more information about this. I don't think he's fully cooked. I don't think he's fully saved. I think there's still been a lot of mistakes, and I think both sides have got a big fight ahead of them. And I'm very, very curious to see how this plays out. I'll leave it there. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out for now. Peace.